And just to kind of spin off from this completely, we talked about sort of why that creativeness is so key for me, and that sort of deeper thing for me. And I think a lot of people go through this. It's like when you're a kid and you're growing up, you kind of have this vision of what you want to be, right?
Yeah.
When you grow up and you think that you can do anything. Really, right? You can do
Yeah.
anything, you can be anything. And that for me was like being an artist. And there were like many different forms of how that could have taken shape, I would say for sure. Whether I was going to be a painter. At one point, I thought I was going to be like a forensic artist for the police station, because I think at that time there was TV shows that were really cool. So there was all kinds of things, right? So I had that kind of going for me from a very early age.
Mhm.
And at 16, this is part of what I talk about in my speech as well, I ended up out on my own. So my mom wasn't well and she just couldn't deal with it. And so I literally, me and like a green garbage bag, like there's a whole story about this, and my things, and had to figure it out. And so that's why when I say all of a sudden I had this 20-year career with banks, consulting firms, like I decided when that happened that some of the hopes and dreams that I had as a kid weren't going to really pay the bills, at
I
that
got you.
time, right? At
Yeah.
16, it would have been really hard to do that. And so I ran to safety and security. So for me, that looked a lot like banks, consulting firms. So for me, it was like out of a very strong need to have things to be able to run and like manage my life like an
Yeah.
adult very quickly. For others, it's like we're told that we should do things, or there's like sort of acceptable things, like maybe that starving artist kind of mentality that I had, right? Parents might have said like, oh, well, that's crazy, right? Like, why don't you go take some business classes or something like that? So I feel
Yeah.
like even though my story is a little bit extreme, everybody can kind of relate to like, we kind of lose that. And then we pick these careers and things that we want to do. And we get into that, not like, we're not wanting to do those. Like I did enjoy those careers. I chose those careers and
Mhm.
everything. But that need for creativity never went away. And I'm finding, especially coming out of the pandemic, and a lot of the clients that we work with and a lot of the people that I talk to, it's like we've had a little bit of time with ourselves and things have kind of shifted. And people are starting to feel those little voices of the things that they wanted to do, whether it was when you were a kid or it was just something you've always dreamed of doing that you've never
Yeah.
done. Those things are really starting to creep out. And so that's kind of like the deeper why for me. It's like, coming back to myself and being able to marry that business, that safety, that security, we'll put air quotes around that, with that creativeness that I was so passionate about. And to be able to later in life feel like I had enough security to say, I'm just going to go and do this now, is huge. And so I try to talk a lot about that to share my story, because I think people can relate with that and see themselves. And like, there probably are some things that I want to do that I'm just kind of sitting on, right?